you're hearing now are 8 to 10 of the 100 looms that we have here at Lowell National Historical Park. During the time period, a typical weave room, depending on the size of the building, would have held between 200 and 500. Of these machines, a mill girl would have worked her way up to attending about 4 at a time during the early 1800s. Working in the mills was not necessarily always good for someone's health, although they did now have a living wage. Because of the noise and the vibrations, many of these women would go deaf, and because of the cotton floating in the air, many of them would inhale so many of the cotton fibers that they would develop something called brown lung. Now with brown lung, the cotton lines the inside of your lungs, and you develop a really terrible, terrible cough. In addition to these issues, there was always the chance that you could get a finger, a hand, an arm caught in a gear, or your hair caught in the belting that powered the machines. Earning a wage was something that was incredibly important to the women who decided to come here to Lowell to work. On average, they made about $3 a week, although it's difficult to determine how much each individual person made because they were paid by piece, which means how much they were able to complete in a given work week. One expense that the women always had to pay was $1.25 a week, which came here to the boarding house. The boarding house keeper is tasked with making sure that these women behave themselves.
I could make a better argument against slavery right now without any preparation at all.
Cousin Mary.
That they're going to church every Sunday.
Though I, for one, would like more time to study. And perhaps to meet a young man.
That they're in by curfew.
5 minutes till lights out, girls. 5 minutes till lights out.
In that they are fed 3 meals every day. Each boarding house, you'd have 25 to 40 women living. That meant that the boarding house keeper really has to be cautious and aware of how much money she is spending and for what purpose. She has to buy food. She's going to have to buy food pretty much every day because of the lack of refrigeration during this time. This, of course, provides a rather weekly dilemma for the boarding house keeper of what she's going to buy. Does she buy really good food and provide a really nice home for these women who are living here, or does she save a lot of money? Because whatever is left over after she purchases all of her supplies becomes her profit.
One of the really important things to know about Lowell and the Industrial Revolution is that there are a lot of pieces that are the building blocks of the city. And one of the most important building blocks, the Industrial Revolution, could not have happened here in Lowell without the slave South. The mills are primarily cotton mills, and so the cotton is shipped up from the southern United States, and this is cotton that has been picked and ginned by slaves. So a lot of times people think of it as, the North is so anti-slavery and the South is all pro-slavery, but in reality, there is a really big connection between the North using the slave labor of the South. But really, that Lowell, in a lot of ways, was built on slave labor too. So the first workforce to come and work in the mills of Lowell was those famous Lowell mill girls. They were farmers' daughters from the New England and New York area. And there's a few reasons why they were chosen to be the workforce. One, they're women, and weaving and spinning, this is all considered women's work. The other reason is they are more expendable. They aren't needed as much on the farms to do the heavy lifting. And the third reason, they can be paid less. They're women in the 1800s. You don't have to pay them that much. And last is because the mill owners and the city planners wanted a transient workforce. They wanted people to come in, work for a couple years, and then go home, get married, go back to their farm life. So they would come in, they wouldn't have that lower class workforce, they would have a fine, moral, Yankee farm girl work class. And once they got here, a lot of them were working on the different floors in the factory, but right here, This is probably the most exciting step, the cloth being made on the loom. And so our weaver here, she is being paid by the piece, which means how much good cloth she produces is how much she's going to get paid. So if she produces a lot of great cloth, she's going to get paid a little bit more. If her cloth has defects or flaws in it, she's going to have pay deducted. While she's working, there's a couple things that she's doing. She is watching all of the threads, those warp threads that are coming towards you, to make sure that none of those break. If they break, that could be a big defect in your cloth. So she's watching all of those. The other thing she's doing is watching the shuttle that goes back and forth carrying the weft thread. And the way I remember it's the weft thread is it goes weft to right, or left to right, left to right. And so she has to replace the bobbin inside every about 8 minutes. So a good mill girl will know that if she turns on one of her looms, lets it run for a few minutes, and then turns on the other loom, they won't run out of thread at the same time. Because threading the shuttle, you have to put the bobbin on the spindle and thread it through this tiny little hole right here. Some of them even figured out that you can put the thread a little bit of the way through and suck it out. They started calling that the kiss of death, though, because passing germs along, and also inhaling all that cotton dust is like smoking a cotton cigarette, so not exactly great for your lungs.
I have little time to write, for we must be in bed by 10 and awake by 4:30. In the morning, Sarah will take me to the overseer who has a place for me. Tomorrow, I will become a mill girl. Affectionately, your daughter.